video will be a review of the Get Dressed for Battle 7.5-inch shield boss. This boss is tough, it's affordable, and it's great for anyone who is on a budget and looking to make their own shield. It's definitely tough enough to take the rigors of reenactment combat. So I'll give you a closer look and we'll get on with the review. This boss is spun out of carbon steel, and as such has a few spinning marks left on it, as well as a flat here from where the clamp engaged in order to hold the work while it's being spun. And as such, couldn't be rounded like the rest. The diameter from outside to outside is 7.5 inches. The flange is about 3/4 of an inch, leaving about 6 inches on the inside. If your hand with gauntlet is wider than 6 inches, I would suggest getting a larger boss to avoid pinching. The holes for the rivets come from the factory with at about 1/4 of an inch diameter. I widened them to accommodate the rivets that I had, which I think were 3/8 rivets. So it drills fairly easily. And that being said, I think that when they say carbon steel, they mean either a mild or a medium steel, just because of how easily it drilled and the fact that as I was hammering the rivets, I was able to deform the flange, which means that it definitely isn't hardened or tempered. It does take quite the beating. This boss I bought about 8 months ago, and it's actually seen some fairly heavy use, but there's only a few minor dents in it and a couple of burrs that need to be taken care of. That's about it. It is a workhorse. When they ship from the factory, they actually come wrapped in brown paper and covered in oil. So any rust that might form on it likely won't because of the oil. But it does mean that you have to clean the oil off before you do anything with it. Now, I'm going to flip it around so you can see the back. So in the back here, you can see a lot of marks from where it was spun on the lathe that aren't on the front, which means they've polished a little bit to remove those marks and make them look less apparent, which is great. It makes the product a little bit nicer. The boss is about 2.5 inches deep, which makes a little bit more room to accommodate a padded glove or a gauntlet. And as you can see, 6 inches is about enough space for my hand to fit in there with the padded gauntlet without too much trouble. If your gauntlets are much bigger than mine, or your hands are bigger, I would consider getting a bigger boss. So while the method of manufacture of it is not exactly the most historically accurate, neither is the look. There are some things you can do to it to change that. Before you mount it to the shield, you can heat it up and hammer it a little bit to get rid of some of the tool marks and all that stuff, as well as rounding the conical tip. I didn't do that because I felt that it wasn't exactly necessary on a shield that I knew would get totally beat up and that I'd be replacing anyway with the shield of the reenactment group that I'm with. This boss is very solid. 14 gauge is definitely the gauge to do for shield bosses. Anything lighter I find tends to crumple under impact. This one just takes the beating. It also has to do with its conical design as well. There aren't really any surfaces that you can get a solid blow on except for the tip. That flat can kind of catch a weapon pretty hard and transfer it through the shield. But the rest of it just causes glancing blows to slide right off. I would recommend this shield boss to pretty much anyone who's looking to make a shield on the cheap and doesn't have the metalworking skills to actually make their own. It is also fairly easy to customize it. You can, if you wanted to do file work or punch work on the flange to make it a little more decorative, that's totally possible. You can change the size of the holes in the flange for whatever size rivet you need. So it's great that way, and you can always heat it up and hammer it and change the way that the boss is actually shaped. I wouldn't do that cold though, because it is a carbon steel, and you may end up cracking it if you try to hammer that cold, because it will work harden under the hammer. But I wouldn't worry about it too much with cracking under the impact of axes and swords and everything. I do think that it's a very, very worthwhile product if you aren't going to look at spending $40 or more on a hand-hammered boss. It's a very solid thing, and I think it actually works fairly well for most reenactment groups, even though it doesn't look 100% accurate because it's got the flat. From a distance, you don't even notice that, because in the sunlight, that flat sort of reflects in the way that a domed boss would. So for a beginner, or for somebody who's just looking for a cheap, tough product to use to make a shield for sparring, or even one to kind of hang on the wall if you're not too concerned about the look of it, this boss is great. As always, links in the description. This time it will be for GDFB's website, for where you can buy this shield boss in Canada at Reliks, where you can buy it in the United States at Kult of Athena, and another good resource for everything Vikind-shield, Vikind-shield.com. They're located in Wisconsin in the United States. If you like what you see, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Bonus tip: if you're looking for a way to hang your shield on a wall, one way that I find works really well is a loop of string like this. This is just 550 paracord, and you just make a loop with it, put it through like that, and then make a lark's head with the knot side against the shield handle, and then you can hang it on the wall from this loop. That makes it very quick to remove, quick to put back on, and very quick to hang on the wall. One thing though, you have to make sure that the hook you use is strong enough to support the shield, and that your wall can support the weight, or else you'll end up tearing a hole in your wall, and your shield will fall to the floor.